Hello and welcome to another episode. Today I want to talk to you about the right way to track your menstrual cycle. This is going to be an incredible episode for some of you. And you may wonder why I said some of you and not all of you. Well, because I want to stress out how important it is for you to make a decision in your life. You have to decide for yourself that you're going to take an action, that by the end of this episode, you are going to do what I'm about to tell you to do, and you're going to be the one that is going to feel the difference in your life. I want to have this conversation with you because there's something that I wish I had someone telling me about all of this at the beginning of my journey when I started to research and to learn about my own menstrual cycle. Because I have spent so much time understanding this, and I have used so many apps and I've used the wrong tools that were really not giving me the insights that I needed to make sense of what is going on in my body. And I have tried all the possible trackers, all the apps, all the PDFs, all the different journals. So I want to help you so that you don't have to go through the same journey like I did. Now, before we start, will you do me a favor, please, and subscribe to my channel? This helps me reach more women who can learn from these conversations. And if you learn something new at the end of each episode, I am sure there are so many other women who can learn from these conversations. So please hit that subscribe button. And I don't want to forget about this. We still have the giveaway contest going on, so please stay tuned till the end of the episode if you want to hear how to join the contest. Now, I still see so many women who are really misled about all the different apps that are really being sold as tracking the cycle, but in reality they are period trackers, which is something completely different, or at least is something insufficient that doesn't give you the necessary information to map out a full cycle. Some of these apps, they do track something more than just the period, but they simply do not cover all the data points that will help you make sense of possible hormonal imbalances, and you won't be able to turn your menstrual cycle into that inner compass, the inner compass that we keep talking about here on this channel, that practice that helps you reconnect with your own body. This is what a lot of women think about when they think about cycle tracking. It's an app that tracks things like when you're bleeding or not, and things about your flow, the color of it, if you have any premenstrual symptoms. So basically it gives you the total length of the cycle. And if you have a regular cycle, it will also help you predict your fertile window, probably also the day of your ovulation, and also when the next cycle is going to come for you. But this is not very beneficial if you don't have a regular period, or if you are trying to troubleshoot some hormonal balances that you might be going on, or even if you are trying to get pregnant. Now, one key data point that all these period trackers are missing is cervical mucus. Well, not my favorite word. I don't know what it is, but whenever I think of mucus, there is somehow this instant distance that is created between me and the word. So I don't prefer the word mucus. I don't particularly use it. I know it's the official word, but I prefer fluid. I don't know, fluid sounds easier, right? Like it feels more inviting into the conversation. So I like to use fluid for the sake of wording. I also don't like discharge. Discharge feels like you want to get rid of something, and we don't want to get rid of our cervical fluid. It's something that we need for our own health. So I prefer fluid. I'm going to stick to fluid if that's okay with you. It just sounds better. And you don't have to be cycling for this to be beneficial for you. You might actually be postpartum or still breastfeeding, and your period might not be fully returned, but you can still reap some benefits from noticing your cervical fluid. Because you're going to go through changes in your cervical fluid, even if you don't have a period. So I'll give you an example. I have a really good friend of mine who was still postpartum with twins, and she got pregnant before she got her period back. So baby number 3 was already on his way when she was still postpartum. I mean, now she has 3 beautiful boys, but of course, it was a surprise for both her and her partner. So this cervical fluid, it really tells you so much about your body, your fertility, and about your hormones. So tracking it is really key. And another misleading thing about these apps is the fact that they claim to predict ovulation. An app cannot predict when you're going to ovulate. So just by inserting some symptoms and by marking the days when you got your period is insufficient data for an algorithm to predict when you ovulate. And the majority of women don't really understand this. You cannot predict ovulation. You can only confirm that it happened. I'll give you my very own story here. So I struggled with irregular periods, long cycles during my 20s. I had irregular, painful periods, 60-day long between periods, ovarian cyst, PCOS, you name it. I really had the full package, I had a full package myself. But once I regulated my cycles, I started having 28, 29-day cycles. And this app that I was using at the time was telling me that I always ovulated on day 14. So in theory, I had a perfect cycle, 28 days, ovulation on day 14. There is no such thing as a perfect cycle. Let's just get it out of the way. And it wasn't until I learned during my certification in menstrual cycle coaching and hormone health that you actually need to confirm that ovulation happened. And you do this by noticing the cervical fluid and measuring the basal body temperature. That's the temperature that you have upon waking. So I got to learn that I actually ovulated on day 18 of the cycle, which led me to having very short luteal days. I only had about 10 luteal days, which is considered a short luteal phase. And just because you got a period, that does not necessarily mean that you have ovulated. Ovulation is not 100% guaranteed if you have a period. So there are certain cycles that we call them anovulatory cycles where you don't ovulate. So if you don't ovulate, there is no progesterone. And if there's no progesterone, remember that ratio that we just talked about in the previous episode between the two hormones? Well, that's exactly what's happening. Your hormones are being thrown off. And more than that, just because you have a regular cycle, it is not guaranteed that you're going to ovulate on the same day every single cycle. Your ovulation day can shift from cycle to cycle because the follicular phase, it's a phase that is flexible in length. Luteal phase is going to be fixed or approximately the same length. So if you have about 12 days each cycle in the luteal, each cycle is going to be about the same length. But the follicular phase is the one that is going to be flexible in length. So that's going to determine the total length of your cycle. So knowing this, tell me, how can an app predict when you ovulate? It doesn't make any sense, right? So I tried all the apps I could possibly download, but I always came back to pen and paper. So I started journaling, I started writing down every single day how I felt. And the reason why I always got back to pen and paper was that I was missing something from all those apps. And the space that I had in those apps to collect the data was somehow insufficient. It was not designed for what I needed, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know exactly what I needed. The problem was that I could not stick to pen and paper either. And in my certification course, the one in menstrual cycle health specifically, it really encouraged pen and paper for journaling about the cycle. And I really tried. I did. I was doing it consistently for months, and I got into it. But somehow, it didn't do the job for me. It was not a complete experience for me. I like to see patterns. That's the thing. I like to see graphs. I like to see trends. I like to be able to, zoom out and look at a big picture. That's just how I work. I'm a visual person. And journaling about symptoms was not giving me that zoomed out perspective that I was looking for. So I could not observe the trends. I could not make sense of my symptoms. And I know that there are so many women who enjoy the process of writing down and journaling all the symptoms. And I'm sure that pen and paper might work for some women. But if it didn't work for me, I'm pretty sure there are some women that just cannot stick to pen and paper, and they are looking for a digital version, a digital space where they can start journaling in a way that they can not only have the space that allows them to fill in all the information, the data points they need, but also that gives them that zoomed out experience so that they can observe the trends. So pen and paper didn't work for me. And I also didn't want to get back to all those tracking apps because I've tried everything and nothing seemed to work for me as I wanted them to work. So I created something that works for me and that gives me exactly that: the space to journal, the space to track all the data points that I want and I need to make sense of all my symptoms and make sense of the hormonal fluctuations. And basically, I designed what I needed. So this is what I'm going to share with you today. So I designed this holistic cycle tracker. That's how I call it. It's that is really simple to use, and it has all the data points that I need to make sense of things. So this tracker helps you make sense of the two main phases of your cycle, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. And it also helps you understand your fertility. So it's not just based on a date, it is actually based on actual physical symptoms that you have to pay attention to. So these symptoms are going to tell you whether or not you have ovulated, when you are starting your fertile window, and they will also help you understand your emotional, physical, energetical needs, and also how you're going to be able to notice how these things change for you inside the menstrual cycle. And I say how these things change for you inside the menstrual cycle because as women, in the reproductive years, we do not run on that 24-hour cycle just like men do. We run on a typically 28-day long cycle. So our physiological, emotional, and energetical needs and also behaviors actually will change throughout the cycle, and they will also change throughout the day. This holistic cycle tracker that I designed also takes into account the phase of the moon. So if you're not cycling, for instance, or if you have very irregular periods, it is really interesting to observe how the moon has an effect on our bodies. I mean, think about it. It's quite a widely spread and accepted thing that moon influences the tides, right? So you have these huge bodies of water that get influenced by the energies of the moon. And so our bodies are actually built out of 80% water. So it only makes sense that the moon is going to somehow affect the bodies as well. Not only by the gravitational pull, but also with the amount of light that we get at night and, things like that. So if you have regular cycles, if you have no PMS, if you have no pain or cramps or discomfort, no mood swings, and really all you want to do is to know when your period is going to come, then maybe a period tracker is not such a bad idea for you. Maybe that's what you need. It might be the right choice for you. But if you want to reconnect with your body, and if you want to understand the language of your body, and if you want to make sense of why you feel different at different times in the cycle, and if you want to deepen this connection with yourself and really be able to use the menstrual cycle as your inner compass, then maybe a period app is not going to be enough for you, even if you have regular cycles. If you're watching this podcast and if you've been following my work, I'm pretty sure it's not a period app that you're looking for. You want more than that. You want to deepen this connection that you have with yourself, right? So something tells me that it's the latter that you're after. And if you're someone who has irregular cycles and is trying to troubleshoot some hormonal imbalances, this holistic cycle tracker is what you're going to use. I already mentioned some of the benefits, but once you will start using this holistic menstrual tracker, you are going to be able to define the phases of the menstrual cycle for yourself. It will also help you understand your fertility, whether you want to get pregnant or whether you don't want to get pregnant now, but maybe you're thinking in the future. And it will also help you understand how your physiological, emotional, and energetic needs change throughout the cycle. Now, let's talk a little bit about the practice in itself. The practice is really simple. All you have to do is do a check-in with yourself, and you do it 2 times a day. You do it early in the morning and in the evening. But the practice in itself, overall, it's going to take you probably 10 minutes at most in total. So both the morning and the evening check-in. It's more about that dedication that you do on a daily basis to start the day and to end the day with this check-in. And the thing is, even if you don't do anything with these data points, but you will, I'm pretty sure, I'm actually 100% sure you will. Even if, let's say you don't do anything with these data points. Just the simple fact that you are having regular check-ins with yourself on a daily basis will deepen the connection you have with yourself. Remember how we talked about the relationship with our own bodies and how they resemble a relationship that we have with a close friend. The more you meet this friend, the more you talk to each other, the stronger the connection becomes and the better you're going to understand each other. And so the more trust you build in your friend, the juicier the conversation gets. And it's exactly the same thing that happens to your menstrual cycle. When you become close friends with someone, you don't have to explain yourself. You almost finish each other's sentences. And it's exactly what's happening when you have a regular check-in with yourself. And now think that you're going to have it twice a day. You build trust with your own body and you rebuild this line of communication. And the more your body trusts you, the more it will reveal eventually. It's a really, really powerful practice. And hormone health and just health in general is just one byproduct of this practice. This is about the reconnection to yourself and to your cyclical nature as a woman. Tracking your menstrual cycle is a practice. So as the word says, it's going to take some practice to get there. So regardless of your goal, whether you want to balance hormones, whether you want to get pregnant or not, whether it is that you want to get more energy or productivity, whatever it is for you, this cycle tracker is really the foundation. I made it really easy for you. You can download the tracker from the footnotes of this episode, so you can do that in your own time. That is really my mission, making things as simple as possible. Okay, so how do you do it? Once you download it, you fill out the cycle tracker each morning and each evening as part of your daily routine. And my tip for you is to try to find a way in which you can turn it into a ritual for yourself. So you can include objects like, for instance, drinking a cup of tea, or you can light up some candles, anything that tells you that that's your check-in time. And you don't have to make it rigid and nothing that will make you feel like this is a chore. This is something that you have to do. You have to turn it into something that you want to do. You're doing it for yourself. And if you cannot do it early in the morning, first thing, if you can find time for it during the day, that's totally fine. The goal is for you to feel good about doing it. Because if you respect yourself and if you love yourself enough and you understand that there is so much power behind connecting to yourself, and if you want to deepen this connection, I'm sure you will find those 10 minutes that you need on a daily basis for this check-in with yourself. And if it happens that you skip one of the days or you find it very difficult to do it on a particular day, let's say you're really busy with kids and like something crazy happened in your life and you just forgot to do it, or you simply didn't find the time to do it, and that's fine. It sometimes happened to me as well, but I'm always coming back to it. So sometimes if I'm missing a few days, I'm just trying to reflect back and see how things were, even if I cannot remember exactly the cervical fluid per se, but energetically, emotionally, I try to remember what happened over the past days, over those days when I couldn't track. So reflection, retrospective also helps. So that's all that you need to do. Make sure that you download the tracker from the link in the footnotes. Watch the quick tutorial video. This is going to give you the explanation you need and you can start right away. The thing is, after you're going to start tracking for a few cycles, you're going to start noticing these patterns that I keep talking about on this channel. And these patterns are really going to help you make sense of what is happening in your body hormonally. And you have to keep tracking. And I'm going to be here trying to help you and support you in understanding how these patterns come through and what could mean. So in the upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to touch upon some of these fluctuations and ways in which you can interpret them. So if you're staying with me and you're going to be following the work that I do here on this channel, you will figure it out. That's all for today. And as I told you at the very beginning of this episode, I have a gift for you. 2 lucky winners who are going to subscribe and leave a written review of the show on the platform or the channel where you're listening to this or watching this is going to win a spot in my next group coaching program. You can find more about the program on thesyncway.com/coaching and of course on my Instagram page. And I'm going to announce the winners in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you next week.